Welcome to another episode of My Interpretation. It's with great joy and a pleasure of mine to bring to you, man, a legend, a great guy, a guy that I always looked up to, Mr. Cecil Joyce.
Glad to be here, Ron.
Man, thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah.
You said you started in 1988 working for the Daily News Journal, man. You don't even look old enough to start in 1988, man.
I feel old enough to have started in 1988, though. So when you're running up and down those sidelines at my age, you start feeling it.
Yeah, I understand, man. I was thinking, man, before you got here, I said, man, as soon as he gets here, man, I just want to tell him, man, that I appreciate, the words and, that you used to write when I played at Riverdale, man. Like when I would read the articles, it would make me feel like, that I really done something. When we won, we really did do something. But I just want to say thank you, man, for your, writing the things that you did. It kind of encouraged me. So
that's one of the best parts of the job. Just seeing people that I covered, 10, 20, 30 years ago and, rekindling friendships and just talking to them. That's one of the best parts of the job, the people I met.
Yeah. So like I said, I've always looked up to you, man. One of the notes that I took said you worked in the amusement business for a magazine that was Billboard. So how did you like that?
It was great. Billboard Publications had several magazines in the Nashville area, and we were all sharing the same office space. So amusement business covered more of the business financial end of the entertainment industry, the carnival sides, the fairs and amusement parks, concert industry. We basically dissected the business end of things like that. And we worked closely with Billboard magazine, and there was a lot of music intertwined between the two publications and stuff. But I was mainly a copy editor there, so I read a lot of stories that some of our fine writers across the country and the world wrote for us. So it was a really fun gig.
Cool. And then also in 2001, you worked for USA.
I did. After I left the magazine, I got back into sports writing, and a good friend of mine that actually helped me start in the business when I was still at MTSU, Chuck Morris. He was the editor at the time of the Gallatin News Examiner and several publications around that area. He asked if I wanted to get back into it. I was kind of itching to do that, and came in and took over as sports editor of several other community newspapers in Dixon and Ashland City and Robertson County, Gallatin, Hendersonville. So that was a fun gig. I did that for several years. Got to meet a lot of new people, which it was fun. Spending a lot of time in Murfreesboro and meeting everybody there. Then you go to a new county and you meet a lot of people there, and it's just the more people you meet, the better this job is.
Gotcha. Yeah. Also, another thing I want to touch upon is you became the sports editor for the Tennessean in 2014. Did you like that better than the Daily News Journal, or do you think it was easier or like the same amount of work?
It was the high school sports editor. So it wasn't sports editor for the over section. But
gotcha.
It was different. It was something I enjoyed experiencing, and there was a lot of transition going on at the Tennessean at the time, and it was more of a administrative role, a kind of being the boss of people.
Gotcha.
And after a while, I just realized that writing is more suited to me, and I had some bosses who felt the same way, and we all came to a mutual agreement that let's put you in a position where you can be more successful. And I think being a writer is what I was born to do in this industry, and I'm glad I'm back doing it again.
Is another note that I took down, man, and I want to tell you right now while you're right here. It was like having your favorite coach go away, and then you see him, and you're rooting for him as he goes to another team. But then he comes back to your hometown and you're excited about it. So when I saw in 2016 that you came back and started writing for the Daily News Journal, I was like, oh man, Cecil's back.
I got a lot of that reception, and it was really a good feeling. And I didn't realize there were so many people still involved in the athletics community around that I'd covered and been associated with in the 90s. Here we are in 2016 when I came back, and there were still so many people that I knew from back then. The friendly faces really made the transition back to D&J really helpful. Yeah,
and you said that the D&J was kind of your strength. What made that your strength? Did it just feel like more comfortable, or
just being a writer? I mean, some people are born to be athletes. Some people are born to be entertainers. Some people are born to be writers. I think I was born to be a writer. I still love good storytelling. I love, finding those really, really good, deep in-depth stories that we write about our athletes, and
Right.
they're not all happy ending stories.
Right.
But
That's
there's
true.
still great stories to write and stories that people want to read and are interested in.
That's true.
A typical example is the Janae Evanson, who played volleyball at Smyrna and had her legs amputated in an accident in
Yeah.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
That's still an ongoing story, with lawsuits and such. But
Yeah.
just doing all that, it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it was great storytelling, and the family welcomed me, and they really confided in me and trusted me to tell the story of what happened. And those are the kind of things that, even though they're not feel good, happy stories, they're still important stories that need to be told.
Yeah, you saying that, man, and it's another story that's, is kind of, it's a sad story, but Tito Lee from Brentwood Academy, even though we played against Brentwood Academy, I couldn't stand those guys because they were so good. They was, man, Tito Lee, Lance Phillips, Kirsten Biggers was 5'6", but played like he was 6'5", and even though I, hate those guys because they were so good, I rooted for them because they were so good too, man.
I respected them.
I respected them. They were awesome, awesome group of guys, and here's stories. There's other stories too, guys around that stuff happens too, man. And you feel like it's part of your family.
Sure.
But yeah, man. It's so many of those stories like that, man. But also there's the good stories too. Even though you don't like teams because they're so good. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I was in middle school at Central Middle School. We had one of the best teams around. But I even say one of my friends, his name is Rayshawn Frazier. We were getting ready to play Smyrna in Smyrna. We played them twice a year.
They were really good too.
Oh man, they had Lance Phillips was a quarterback. They had Carlos Hayes was a tailback. Todd Russell was the fullback. They had Mario Kelso.
I remember those teams.
Yeah, I think he hit a
That was some
Roseburg.
great rivalries between those two teams.
Yeah, and those guys were so good, man, that I think that was the first game I cried in middle school. That was the first game I got because they just kept scoring on us. Even though we were good, they were on another level, and I just remember Coach Pat Murphy telling us, man, if you hit them, you'll break them down. But we're hitting them, but we're a lot smaller. So when we hit them, they're bouncing off of us, spinning off of us, and Carlos Hayes had 150 yards against us that year.
I enjoyed covering those games between those two teams.
Yeah, man, they had a great team. 4 top 10. You had 4 top 10 finishes nationally in Associated Press Sports Editor Award. You got that?
Yeah, I don't like to toot my own horn. It's again, some of these are just really great stories that fell into my lap, and I was able to do as good a job as I could on those. But we all like to our company. We're heavily invested in the Associated Press Sports Editors Association, and their awards is the national awards. If you finish top 10, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. But I bring that up, man, because I compare it to like somebody like a Coach Rankin. Like in sports writing, I feel like you're the Coach Rankin of sports writing.
I won't go that far. No. I'll never compare me to Coach Rankin. He's definitely the GOAT. I wouldn't say I'm the GOAT. I enjoyed covering Coach Rankin, so I'm glad I'm associated with him still to this day, and still talk to him very frequently. And
great guy.
That was a great stretch. Obviously, you played for him back in the '90s, and then there was a fun time. From 1990 when he came to Riverdale until I left the D&J in '98. I covered Riverdale exclusively for 8 years, and that was a fun ride.
Man, we lived down the street from Riverdale back then. I was in Central Middle School, but I noticed every day my brother was I was in 7th grade. He was a freshman. And then my 8th grade year, he became a sophomore. But every day when he would come home from football practice, he would Coach Rankin said this, or Coach Rankin, or Coach Rankin. I'm like, who is this Coach Rankin guy? And then when I got to Riverdale, I realized who he was, man. He was very strategic, a great football mind, very disciplined.
Yeah, he was tough on y'all.
He was disciplinary, man. He was very disciplined. He wanted you to be. And me and I went and talked to Marcus Williams night before last. And we started talking about, some of the great players. I won't bring up their names, but even those guys who were like game changers, if they deviated away from the plan, he would show them, hey, you're not above the program. one guy that everybody that follows Riverdale, you know who I'm talking about. I remember watching the news. Riverdale was in the playoffs, maybe 1993, I believe, and the guy that got suspended was on the news, and he was asked about Coach Rank, and he said, "Well, he told me, these are the rules." And I actually had to set out a playoff game. And he was probably one of the best players on the team.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over them mountains? Well, if Coach would have put me in fourth quarter, we'd have been state champions, no doubt. No doubt in my mind.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So, when Coach got here in 1990, I think Riverdale knew they had a good coach. Nobody really could see at that point that he was going to be the GOAT. Of high school coaching, not just in Tennessee, but may end up being one of the best nationally.
Yeah.
But in 1990, he came in. He had a tough decision to make. He had he inherited a team that was coming off of 3-7, 4-6. I mean, they were in a kind of a rut of 3-7, 4-6 kind of seasons.
Yeah.
And they started out 4-2 that year, and they're like, oh, Coach Rank is making a difference right off the bat.
Yeah.
But they had a tough second half of the schedule, and I think he saw that there was a need to go young, and that was a tough decision. You got guys who've been playing for 3 or 4 years in the program, and you've got to make a decision to better the program. And he made that tough decision. Lost his last 4 games, finished 4-6. Had people wondering, is he the man for the job? Is he any better than what we've had?
Yeah.
And I think every year after that, they realized.
They had that the guy that they needed. Also, man, you're a karaoke DJ.
I was. I guess I would say I'm retired from it. Not to say I won't get back in it, but that's always been a fun side project for me.
Yeah.
And it gets difficult trying to work it around my real job. Because a lot of times you're covering games on Saturday nights. They may be championship football games, they may be sectional soccer matches, but whatever the case, sometimes it's tough getting to the side gig, which has always been the side gig.
Right.
It never took precedent.
Right.
So a lot of times juggling that made it tough, but doing it was fun. It's just, I love music. I know you love music, so you can relate. But I'm not a very good singer, but I love to sing, and I love to just sit around watching people sing. They don't have to be superstars to enjoy the songs they're doing, and enjoy them having fun doing it. And being a KJ, getting to call people up and seeing how much fun they were having. I love doing that.
Yeah, that brings me to my next point, man. This had to be like 2013. Me and a guy named, I call him Jay Smooth, but his name is Sam Witherspoon. Great guy, one of my best friends. We were at Nobody's, and you walked in. I was like, man, that's Cecil. And you came over, you was like, hey, Ron, how you doing? I said, I'm all right, man. So I said,
I remember that.
I told him, I said, man, that's Cecil Joyce, a sports writer for, long-time Daily News Journal sports writer. And he was like, oh, okay, man. And you want to sit down or whatever. So me and him were talking. And all of a sudden I heard, I said, just in on the counter. I looked up, I was like, I know that ain't Cecil on stage.
I was doing a little Shaggy. It was actually Angel by Shaggy.
Okay.
It was Angel, but
Angel, yeah. So I was like, man, I never knew that side of you, man. So it was kind of like a shock to see you, in a different light. And I was like, you know what, music, is what all of us can relate to. It brings something out of us.
It's a good release. Singing is a good release.
It is, man. It is. Well, Cecil, I know you're a busy person, man. I just want to say thank you so much for stopping by and agreeing to do this.
That was my pleasure. I enjoyed doing this. This has been Cecil Joyce, and this is my interpretation.